Brad Short is the inventor of HP Sprout. And I've known Brad for as long as I can remember. It turns out he's a family friend going back to the mid-'80s. And he's a Cornell-trained engineer. And he's also extremely generous with his knowledge. I used to advise groups of undergrads who worked on assistive technology for the blind. And on top of all that he was doing to invent Sprout, what would become Sprout at HP, which you'll learn about shortly, he helped me advise just as a volunteer. He mentored these teams of undergrads to help us create these cool technologies. So I think what Brad has done at HP is an incredible example of intrapreneurial innovation. So we're very fortunate to have him speaking today.
Okay, thanks, Serge. Yeah, and Evan, this is a real pleasure to share the story of Sprout with this audience. So what I'm going to do is talk about Sprout and give a quick description, a little sales pitch, but also the story behind Sprout, which I think is actually just as important and fitting for this audience. I think you'll really appreciate it. So what is Sprout? There's no fundamental invention here. It's a combination of of existing technologies in a unique configuration. So we have input methods, projectors, scanning systems, high-res, from the last panel discussion about the high-res camera combined with depth camera. That is essentially what Sprout is doing, all aiming down onto a touchscreen. So Sprout is a dual-screen, immersive new platform that it integrates all of these existing components into a single device. In addition to this hardware platform that we've developed, we had to create a software framework. And it's a software framework that we call an operating system that's running on top of Windows. And this gives us an SDK, APIs, that enables this immersive playground for users. Okay, so combining all of this stuff into one integrated system gives you many new use cases. It blends physical and digital, and I'll get into that. It's this intuitive interaction space right in front of you. You can capture 2D and 3D content effortlessly and seamlessly, and you can collaborate in real time, remotely, and simultaneously. It's what we call you can create like an artist out of the box immediately. Okay, but it's really hard to just explain this in words, so I'm going to go and describe this with a home video that I put together of the journey of Sprout over the last 5.5 years. So with this in mind, that it's an intuitive creation station that makes creating as simple as the analog world of creation. So you have physical things on your desktop and the way artists work. That's really what we wanted Sprout to do. And that allows people to go from thought to expression in an instant. I have an idea, I need to get it out and express it instantly. That's what Sprout does. Okay, so the home video. This is a kind of a personal journey of the making of Sprout. So 5 years ago or so, week 2 of the first concept idea, I presented to an internal HP innovation fair. And this was a poster fair, informal. I had this idea a couple weeks in advance. I was working on vertical printers all-in-ones. This was 15 years into HP working on imaging systems, imaging and printing systems. I was using this vertical all-in-one to project down onto a surface in front of me to just kind of save desktop space. And I rigged up this little projector system, Pico projector at the time, and I started showing what can happen when you integrate projection with the combination of projection and physical content. So that was the first moment there where I put a photo down and captured it, reprojected one-to-one on top of the photo, and that was this kind of aha moment that was really amazing as I shared it around. You can do things like I scanned the book, barcode, now I know the book, so I can actually do a copy of a page of the book without even imaging the book. So this is really kind of a breakthrough concept that allows scanning and digital content into the workflow. This is what I worked with Serge's team on to actually do a real computer vision prototype. All the stuff you see here is real. That allowed us to kind of explore this idea further. And in order to get it in front of executives and get some enthusiasm for the idea and funded, I created this prototype. You notice this is off the shelf. I have a Wiimote. I added stylus. made it brighter. But I start to show this use case of WYSIWYG kind of one-to-one editing where I'm bringing physical content in, instantly transforming atoms to photons in an instant is what I called it. All this is, there's no touch screen. This is just a projector and a Wiimote. So this idea and sharing this concept helped me get it green-lighted. That's a big deal within HP, so it took about a year to get it to this stage. So at the green light, we started developing the experience. It's really the experience more than it is the technology, and I had to reiterate that over and over to the investors. So here we start to show what this experience on Sprout really looks like. You've got an immersive horizontal computing system. You're bringing in physical content and interacting with it seamlessly. And we start to show some use cases. Life management, bringing in receipts, checks, documents. So this is coming out of the printing scanning division at HP, so that's kind of where we were. Now you can see augmented reality. This is direct augmented reality where I'm turning passive blocks into physical things that can interact with the digital content. Here I've got these little plastic letters, and I'm creating a video using plastic lettering, so maybe stop motion animation effects. This was our former CEO and VP, Louis Kim, which was kind of the mastermind behind kind of developing out this concept from a business perspective. So now we had to get serious about developing hardware, building up a team within HP to about 75 engineers. We built a custom projector. We added touch. This is one pivot moment in the development of the hardware. And now you can start to see some more use cases. I'm writing on top of physical objects with a 3D stylus, capturing before giving it the areas I want to capture. Working with digital content the same way that you work with physical content. And this is really the essence and key to all of Sprout. You don't need to learn how to interact with this computer because it's working the same way you've worked with physical content your whole life. And we start to look at augmented reality there where I projected detected text on top of that wedding invite. And then it gave me contextual links. Here a wedding, this is like a wedding thank you note where everything is very seamless. Sort of the idea, or here's a Fruit Loop counting game. So putting in real Fruit Loops for edutainment and kids' fun kind of activities. This was our first look at 3D scanning, that you could actually do 3D scanning with this hardware and have it be a user kind of interactive experience. Momentum started building. Presenting now to the next CEO. So we're going through CEOs, so I had to rebuild up the entire use case and explain the vision again. We got serious about the industrial design. We needed to redesign the entire projection system. This is another year and a lot of money to do these projection systems. So we went to the left one, to the middle one, to reduce the size and cost to get this more manufacturable and to make a product out of it. So we got to lots of IP, lots of patent filings, a big team. This was the final ID that we were about ready to tool release for. And bam, 2.5 years into this, the project was canceled. Okay, so this was a big blow. I'm sure I like this audience because you can probably relate to this. I wasn't as used to being exposed this way. But we hit the road. The whole team was disbanded except me and a few other key people. We hit the road and went and tried to sell it around HP, VCs, external partners, trip after trip, thousands of miles, setting up this elaborate equipment the night before because it was very sensitive. We created fake wired covers to create a vision to these investors as what they're going to get when this actually comes out. I presented to all the GMs of the commercial groups, the workstation team in Fort Collins, Houston, the PC group in Sunnyvale. Over and over, the response was always no, but this is awesome, really cool, great work, but can't fund it. We just kept doing this over and over for 8 months. We were about to the last month. We gave ourselves about 9 months. We said, okay, we got to pivot again. So we added a second screen. So this went from a WebOS kind of Android type experience now to a full-fledged PC experience. Since I was talking to the PC group, this really opened up and exploded the use cases. So now it's a no-compromise computing system, dual-screen immersive. This is kind of some of the stuff you can get. Immersive collaboration. The vertical screen has the forward-facing view. The horizontal screen is the content I'm sharing. And here I shared a PowerPoint presentation really quick, edited it, said, okay, thank you, goodbye, And so that can replace an entire meeting in just a few seconds. Then we started doing focus groups, bringing in people to see this crude technology. This was an Apple fanboy, no offense to Apple, but he said this is the first time you try Microsoft again after seeing this kind of. So we were seeing it as adding these use cases was more than just making a desktop more slimmer and faster and more powerful. It actually created new use cases. So now we had to go to the engineering side and actually develop this product. Up until this point, a lot of this was just show. So we developed an ID. We got the second green light. It was about a year after the first cancellation. A new GM came into the consumer group and said, yeah, we have to do this. Now the catch was we needed about 2 years because a lot of this was just a video that we were showing. They gave us about 10 to 12 months. So this was kind of a double-edged sword. You get green-lighted, but you have to do it in half the time. So we went to the team in the PC group in Sunnyvale and built a software team, because a lot of this is software now. We had some hardware that had to be developed, turned on the HP machine and supply chain to develop hardware quickly, ramped up a software team, and you can start to see that the software couldn't just run Windows as is. We actually had to create what we called an operating system on top of Windows. This went into the way in which creatives work, where you're pulling in content visually from galleries. At the same time, HP was looking at 3D printing and needed a tie-in to what we call blended reality, going from physical to digital and back to physical. So we, as Sprout was a fundamental hardware platform, we were able to create 3D scanning in record time and actually introduce and launch that. So this was about 5 years after the initial concept. We actually launched HP last November for $18.99 into the market. Then we had to go to the difficult job of selling what this means. What is the vision of Sprout? It's a very hard concept to really get unless you actually see it. So we spent a lot of time traveling around, going to fairs. This was last weekend at the Maker Fair, which was a perfect audience. Makers really love this technology. They get it. It's this physical. So here we scanned a face, did some editing on it, and then printed out the face onto a 3D printer. So 5 years, many successive iterations of this project, ups and downs, but we finally got it into market. Okay, so hope that gives you a sense of what blended reality is. 2D, 3D input, so scanning and high-res imaging, and then 2D, 3D output. So physical and digital can coexist into the same space. So this idea of immersive 3D computing, imaging, and printing, we think will democratize creativity, and I believe it'll democratize engineering to some extent. There's already a movement called the Maker Movement, which I think will be a renaissance, which brings art and engineering combined together and allows kind of the masses to develop content. So today computing is somewhat flat, even though some of the presentations I've seen yesterday, I think there's big advances already. It requires tool expertise to create. Photography on computing is more static, and video is kind of single perspective. So we think what is needed in the future is a hardware platform and interface that can keep up with this new technology, new content, as well as usher in a new way in which you edit and work with this content. So the first step will be seeing the content and consuming it, but we believe the Sprout and Sprout follow-ons is just a first step in actually making that content editable. So as art and technology converge, different types of people are going to want to be able to create content without learning the tools and software. So this is one of the ways in which Sprout, we believe, will contribute to this field. So Sprout is just the first step. We're going to be expanding into different form factors, and it's all about the experience. We'll be looking at mobile computing, and this is what we call the immersive computing platform. So thank you very much. We're, of course, looking for talented skills, especially in computer vision, to help build out this next generation of immersive computing. Thank you very much.